Today in this video, I want to talk about college. I want to talk about the transition as a homeschool mom and a homeschool family to college. I want to talk about whether college is something that you think your child needs to do versus technical school versus lots of other things, basically. So I'm actually going to share with you some of the things that I've been reflecting on because I am a parent and we are homeschooling two teenage boys and a preteen girl. The 9-year-old, I'm not worried about college right now, but I'm thinking about the older kids right now. I also come from an education background where I was a former public and private school teacher. So education in college is really important to me. And for my entire life, college is almost like the only path that I really knew. I also do homeschool consultations and transcripts and, working with the state, all of that. I have a lot of information, a lot of things that I have been thinking about in my head. So I'm going to address all of this right now. So first of all, my philosophy has always been, just across the board, is prepare your high school student for college. Now, as a homeschool parent, you are directly communicating to the college. You bypass the public, you bypass the private school system, and the requirements that you have in place as a homeschool parent, they are going to be specific to the college. The state of Florida by law have to accept your homeschool diploma and your homeschool transcripts that you created. They will sometimes have you fill out an affidavit, and they will most of the time test your child, usually with the PERT, to see where their placement should be in college. That's always been my philosophy. Now, I think it still is my philosophy, understanding that we got the high school requirements to go into college, and that's fine and dandy if they decide not to do college, they still have them. But the next thing that I have been thinking a lot about is, what if my child's not ready for college? What if my child doesn't even know what they want to do? And that's a big one because, trust me, I can't afford college for 4 children. And the chances of getting scholarships, they're possible, but if your child is not driven to go to college, they don't know what they want to be, they're going to be less likely to sit down and do the research needed and the papers written for those scholarships. So I have one kid, like most kids, they don't know what they want to do with the rest of their life. They're clueless. I know when I was in 10th grade, I had no idea. It did give me a piece of paper, which allowed me to teach. I'm thankful for that. But I think if I would have waited a few years before going to college, I would have done things a lot differently. So here's some of my thoughts now. Of course, in light of everything that has been going on, people are talking about how college is a scam. We are all familiar with Charlie Kirk's perspective on things. Don't need college degrees, go to technical school, be an entrepreneur. All of these ideas really depends upon what the child wants. I have been sitting a lot with my son discussing these things, and like I said, he has no clue what he wants to do. And we're trying to come up with a game plan. So one of the things that we have recently been discussing is this idea. There's a couple of things we're discussing. So the first one is the 5-year high school plan, which, there's this idea of you have to graduate with your friends in time, all these things about graduation and the hype behind it. And here's what we've been talking about is this idea of you've done 1 year of high school, you've got the 6 credits down, you have, 18 more to go. Why don't we go part-time with high school and then you start getting out there in the workforce, finding a job, getting used to working for an employee for money, building that confidence, and maybe finding out if there's a career out there in the workforce that you like. I feel like I don't know all the different career options out there. I do have him taking a career readiness class, and hopefully they'll kind of touch on some of those things. But another thing that I have been talking to him about is there are older men in our congregation, older women too, older men in our congregation, women who have jobs and have gone down certain career paths that are really cool. They have some insight. And so my son, there's a couple of people that he's been talking to because he's interested in what they do. And how do I do that? What do I need to do? Can I intern with you? And volunteering and getting to know these people, there is so much power in volunteer and so much power in getting some employment experience under your belt and just getting out there into the job market early, networking, and slowly moving up the ladder, or maybe branching off. So what we've been discussing is this idea of taking a 5-year high school plan, preparing him for college if he decides to go, but mostly allowing him to get his feet in the job market. Now, same thing is true if your child wants to rush through high school and get to their business. If they're very driven, you can do that too. I will leave a link to a very good video that is done by Andrew Pudawa that talks about, getting to the job and getting high school done, because there's so much of a waste of time with high school. And that's true if they're gifted, if they're smart, if they can get through some of this high school material like Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry, which is something that a lot of colleges will need. Get through it, get it done. There's two things that I'm kind of talking about right now. The idea of the child that doesn't really know what they want to do, which I feel like is the majority of children, to be honest. That idea, but then there's that other idea of, I know what I want to do. I want to go out there and do this. I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to start this. Get done with high school and go. Get them college bound and done. Either way, they're going to have to take PERC tests or a placement test if they decide to do college. Now, there is, of course, the other child that is very driven. They know what they want to do, and what they want to do is in the STEMs, science and technology, and engineering is a big one. Now, see, engineering is tricky too, and I'm finding this out a little bit from talking to some young engineers. You don't necessarily have to have a college degree to be an engineer. There is a program actually at our home education program that allows kids to learn about electronics, manufacturing, where they're getting the certificates before they even graduate high school. So there's so many opportunities, there's so many areas where they can get their feet wet. But if they're really driven on something and college is a requirement and that's what they want to do, get the scholarships. Get as much of the credit stuff that you can get done, maybe dual enroll a little bit. They could even take some time, a year off before college, to do an apprenticeship type situation. Shadowing or volunteering, there's so many options. We don't have to follow one track. The typical track that I know my generation is used to. It was always stereotyped as the smart kids went to college and the dumb kids went to technical school. That was like the mentality. When we did that high school walk during graduation, they would announce the college that we were going to. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's okay not to follow the track, the educational track that you thought was normal. They need to do for their career what they love to do. If they're not happy doing that, they're not going to be successful. And it's okay if they need to take a year off to figure out what they're going to do. I didn't take a year off. I took 5 years in college, and then I took a year off to figure out what I wanted to do. I had to have that time to really contemplate what I loved. I enjoy it more because of that. Instead of being pushed in a direction or pushed to make a decision right away. There's also this idea that some businesses will actually pay for college tuition if you can commit to working for 4 or 5 years in that field. So there's just so many options to think about. I think we have to really be able to first hand the ball over to our kids to be in charge of that decision and us to just trust. But I do still think it is important to get them, college prepared with high school credits and transcripts. You can take 5 years doing that. You can take 6 years doing that if you need to. Now, when it comes to GED, that's a whole nother story. My recommendation, at least for the state of Florida, don't do a GED because you can write the diploma. But we can talk about that later, and let me know if you guys seriously want a video about that. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.